Welcome to Real Women's Stories. This is the final episode of my series featuring the Let Them theory. This is my coaching episode, and we've been going through a little bit of a journey, and it really started after I read Mel Robbins's Let Them theory book, which kind of blew up everywhere and internationally. And it got me thinking that I wanted to explore the Let Them theory with my community of Real Women's Stories, because it changed something in me. It changed the way that I started behaving. I started showing up in relationships, in situations that would often trigger me and often make me feel upset, frustrated. And, to be quite frankly, I was playing quite small and sitting back and not having a voice in many, many situations that I've been in. So today I wanted to bring it all together. Now, not in Mel's words, in my words, and in your words too. We're going to talk about let them and what it really means and what it doesn't mean. And after this series ends, then I'm hoping you have got some powerful take homes that you can start using in your everyday life. I've also got some real life examples from listeners. I did put a message out in one of my previous episodes asking for anyone to write in with their real life challenges, because it's not just about reading a book, is it? It's not about understanding a theory. It's about putting that theory into practice. That's what makes it so powerful. And when we lift those words off of the page and we start using it in our everyday life, that's when we see the real changes happening and the shifts occurring in our relationships, in how we show up in our lives, with our family, and also in work. So let's get right into it. I would just like to cover my takeaways of the let them theory. So for me, it's about, giving myself permission to stop controlling other people and to take that control back in our own lives. So it's allowing people to behave, to react in whatever way they want to, in whatever way they are going to show up, because as we know, we just can't control people. And it's also about setting those boundaries. So it's not about having to explain ourselves all the time or proving a point or even defending ourselves. Don't you often find that when you say no to somebody, you often have to back that no up with some kind of an excuse? So that's the power of let them. It removes the emotional tug of war where you're not trying to convince anyone. You're just choosing peace. It's about releasing the grip on people, on the outcomes of situations, and releasing that grip of needing to be understood, because we shouldn't have to back up how we feel and how we behave. It's also about trusting that it's okay to choose yourself and not to feel selfish. Everyone deserves to choose themselves. And often what we do is, in the process of situations, we try and people please. We try and advocate for other people because we want them to react in a certain way. So this is about having our own beliefs, being in control of our beliefs and having a voice. Because if we don't, we often feel very frustrated and unhappy. And then we create habits along the way throughout our lives that we then start behaving in this way in all areas of our lives. Just to cap that off. So it's about choosing us, choosing our beliefs, and allowing ourselves to say no to people and not having to explain ourselves when we're in a process of a conversation, of making a decision. If somebody invites us out and we don't want to go, why do we feel that we have to back that up? They don't need to hear all the backstory that's going on in our head, because normally it is just a story going on in our heads. Why don't we just say no? We often try and back up a no with a defensive mechanism, with an explanation, but we never have to back it up when we say yes to something. So let's start saying no thank you, and leaving it at that, and not having to give an explanation as to why you're saying no. It's just a no. So that's the version of letting them. The version of letting me, it means that I can feel lighter and I can feel freer. So I can potentially speak less and actually feel more. And we can say no without explanation, as I've just described. So let us move through the world without over explaining, over functioning, and over apologizing. I used the theory this week in something that I did, which which I'm going to share with you. So I was running, and I have been running, promotional marketing campaign, going out into the public and talking about what coaching is, talking about the podcast and why I've built the community, and also giving very high level coaching sessions to people so people could understand what coaching is and what it isn't, and then to experience things. So I was kind of feeling that fear of being in a new environment, being around new people, telling myself that story of, what if nobody interacts with me? What if no one engages with me? What if I'm too loud? What if I'm too talkative? And what I did was I sat back and I reflected and I thought, how can I use the let them theory in this situation? So bringing it into my real world. So I thought, okay, what could I do if I let them, so I could allow people to behave the way they wanted to? I'm in a reception area, I'm in a busy kind of office foyer, and if people choose to engage with me and choose to interact with me, that's great. But if they don't, that's also fine too, because those people might have other trajectories on their mind. They may be rushing out to another meeting or going for a coffee. So allowing them that space to be who they want to be, and they don't have to interact with me. The promotion is there for those people who are curious and who want to learn about coaching and also who want to engage with me. So I turned up feeling confident. I hadn't wasted any energy on worrying about how this was going to play out. It was just, I was going to show up as me, and I was going to do my thing and explain exactly what, the Real Women Coach is and Real Women's Stories. And I would speak to people who would engage with me, and I got loads of energy. I had passion. I had my energy there. I hadn't wasted any of that. It didn't hold me back. It didn't create a barrier around me. And you know what I found out? That when I took that power back and took that control back and took my energy back, and that allowed me the space to step into that space with my passion, with my heart on my sleeve, and be my authentic, true self. Not only did I have loads of energy, and I created loads of energy, and I had lots more people than I would have ever imagined engaging with me, that when I did engage with them, and when I did go through the process of explaining what coaching was, and when we did go through a 20-minute coaching session, it just was so much more powerful. The energy that I brought to the sessions and allowed that space for the people that were engaging with me, to give them the space to feel vulnerable, to share their stories with me and take them through a little coaching journey. It just created such an amazing experience, not only for me, but for those people that I was engaging with. And there were loads of hugs afterwards. I really felt a genuine connection. So by letting people either engage with me or not engage with me, and not worrying about that beforehand, gave me the passion, the energy to show up in my space that I was in, and then allowed other people to have a safe space, and me really being able to focus on those individual people. And it was just so much more powerful. And I had the best day. And I know those experiences that I gave to those other people were, you know, I feel that they set them on a journey and they got to experience coaching. So if I hadn't done that, if I'd sat small, if I felt that I shouldn't have had a voice, I would not have engaged with all those people. I would not have delivered amazing coaching sessions for them, and they would not have walked away having gained the experience of coaching and also a step towards a goal that they were trying to achieve. So that just proves that the let them theory works. And I am, like I said, I'm using it in my everyday life. That is just an example of how powerful the theory can be, you know, by not draining our energy, by worrying, by building up this story that didn't even exist. I asked you lovely listeners to write in with some, you know, some challenges that you were facing and that we could talk about the let them theory. So I've just got a couple that I've pulled out. They are anonymous, so I shall leave them anonymous. But I just feel I picked these ones out because I feel that these situations are situations that we all go through in our lives, be it as an adult or even as a child. So one woman messaged me saying that her daughter was making choices that she didn't agree with, financially, romantically, and also with work. She said, I feel like I can see the train wreck coming and I just want to stop it. I can totally resonate with that. I've got my kids around me. I'm constantly worrying about them. I'm constantly, you know, thinking of ways of how I can approach the situation because they're quite frankly just not listening to me. So let's think about how we can use the let them theory in this response, because I'm sure this does hit home to a lot of us. What about if we just allowed our kids to have the space to create whatever they're going to be creating at the moment, be it in the financial kind of aspect, whether or not they're going out with somebody who we don't agree with, or they're either stuck in a job, keep moaning about it, or they've decided to take a career change that we might not agree with, but they want to do. What if we just allowed them? What if we just allow them to make their own decisions in their life and let that play out? So we then release the control and they feel that control being released. So they don't feel that pressure anymore. This is the big thing. We're going to allow them to do whatever they want to do, as long as obviously they're not hurting themselves. And then how can we choose to respect their path, even if it looks messy? And, you know, when you respect someone's decisions, what do you think happens? It creates a much more fluid space and relationship where there's no conflict, where there's no pressure. Because when there's pressure, when someone pushes, the other person pushes back. We're going to release that pressure completely. We're going to open the door. We're going to lift that pressure from the box. And then we create this lovely air of flowing space around us and around the person who we love, because we're doing this out of love. And what happens? We can try and connect with them in a much stronger way. So instead of having conflict, let's look at trying to connect with our kids so that we can then show them the support and love, because that's really why we're doing all of this, out of love, and that we want to show them support. So reframing that whole situation, releasing the pressure, allowing some space for our children to be who they want to be, create what they want to create, and then they will feel that pressure release, creating a much more connective way. And our kids will probably start talking to us and want to have conversations about the situations they're in. So rather than us putting the pressure on, they will then start reflecting and coming back to us. That is how you can use the let them theory. And whoever wrote in, I hope that you have found that useful and could go away and think about how you can make the next steps in order to reframe that whole situation. And look, it might take a little bit of time because, quite frankly, we've been pressurizing these kids forever. So they may not look at you in a trusting way, but at least it will start the process. And the more that you release that control and the more that you show up and allow them the space without any judgment, the more they will start communicating with you on a more adult alignment, and that you don't have to tell them what to do. Okay, so on to the next situation. We had someone writing, and this is more on a work basis. So a colleague of theirs keeps undermining them, especially within boardroom situations. So someone else wrote it in and shared how their coworker constantly talks over them in meetings. They take credit for all their ideas, and now they've been sitting there stewing on it, and they're actually thinking about quitting. I mean, what would you say to someone who was thinking about quitting their job over somebody else? First of all, I'd say, please just take a step back and have a think about this, because if this is a job that means a lot to you and you're enjoying your job, and it's just that one person that's having an impact on you wanting to go to work each day, showing up, you really need to think about how you can use the let them theory in that situation. So how can we deal with this? If I've got someone who's talking over me and they're constantly taking the credit for my ideas, my projects, what if I just allow them to do that? What if I just allow them to speak out? But what if I thought, next time I'm going to speak up? I'm going to start the conversation and I'm going to jump in there first. Because often what happens is we're waiting for that person to jump in before us because we know what's coming. How about if you took control back of the situation and you said, I'd actually like to give my opinions on the situation or the project or whatever it is that you're talking about, and you explain first. So don't sit back in silence. Why don't you be strategic and strong? And then you get to choose how you show up, because what you're doing is you're allowing that behavior, which is absolutely fine. You're going to let them carry on with their behavior, but then it's how you're going to show up and how you're going to reframe that situation. So how about you speaking up? How about you talking about your ideas, the input that you've put into the project that you're working on? So don't sit back and be small. Allow yourself and allow that person to have their voice, but also you add on to it, because if it is your idea, I bet your version will seem much more taking to the person that's on the other end of that conversation. If I'm hearing somebody who's taking credit for someone else, you're not going to hear the passion in their voice. But if you're the person that has brought that idea to the table, that's run with that project, that's been the person that has evolved the project, that's coordinated it, your conversation in the way that you're going to speak about that is going to be far more powerful and passionate than the other person who's just trying to, in inverted commas, take credit for your ideas, because these are your ideas. So if you love your job, I would strongly advise you to sit in that space and just make sure that your voice is heard as well as the other person's, and then see how it plays out before you take any action. So allow them to show up in their space the way that they do, but then how are you going to choose to show up? And think about how you're going to be strategic in that. You know what the situation is. So how can you reframe that situation so that you speak up and you take ownership of that project? I don't think it's going to come out in any negative way at all. I think people are going to want to hear your ideas and hear what you've been putting into the project. And it will show your other co-worker that you do have a voice, that you are powerful. And I bet you they'll sit back, because all you're doing is allowing the situation to play out, and you're not speaking up. Take the power back and speak up and show everyone who you are, and feel and embrace that whole situation. And just finally, I would honestly, try this before you quit your job. And if you feel that it doesn't work and if you're struggling with it, then please get back in touch with me and I will have an offline conversation with you. But thank you very much for sharing that, because I think that's really powerful. And I think that a lot of us have been in those situations, either in our friendship groups where somebody constantly speaks over us, or in our work situation. Or even with a sibling. I know it happens with siblings. So have a voice, stand proud, show your true self and believe in yourself and feel proud of who you are and proud of all the things that you're doing, and share them with everybody. It's about having a conversation and sharing everything you're doing. Right. So I have one final situation that I'm going to talk about. And I feel that this again is a situation that we do often, well, it often shows up in our lives. And this is really talking about friends and how friends can often drift. So someone wrote in and they said, I feel that I am the person who's constantly doing the chasing in this friendship, that I'm always making the phone calls, I'm always sending WhatsApp messages, and I just feel like I'm chasing this person. It's making me feel really uncomfortable. And quite frankly, it's really exhausting me. I know we've all been there. We've had these friends that have existed throughout our lives, and sometimes our lives change, and sometimes we try and cling on to friendships for that time, but sometimes those friendships just need a bit of space. And sometimes you just need to let control of trying to chase that friend, because all it's doing is upsetting you, and all it's doing is causing you frustration, you anxiety, thinking, what have I done wrong? Maybe that friend is just in a different headspace. Maybe that friend just needs some space away from not only you, but some other people, because they might be dealing with something that they want to deal with on their own. So how can you use the let them theory as a response to this? Why don't you just allow them the space? Why don't you just allow them to drift away? Because, friendships evolve. And by trying to cling on to a friendship, it can turn into resentment. And if that is the case, you just need to look at yourself and go, okay, I'm going to feel sad that this friendship has gone away. I'm going to grieve a little bit for this friendship. But what I can do is I can allow myself the opportunity now to create space for possibly what's next. So instead of that friendship and that constant, calling them up and worrying about the friend, you can then create the space for an opportunity that can come next. And that may well be another new friendship that can come into your life. That may well be that a friendship that you've already got, an existing friendship, will grow, and you can allow that space for that relationship to grow, and you can become more aligned with that person. We all change throughout our lives, and we do often hang on to things and worry about what other people are thinking and feeling. But why not worry about yourself? And why not think, if that friendship isn't going anywhere now, let's just leave it. Let's just allow that person to move in a different direction. And it may just be for the time being, and you may rekindle that friendship back up again. But allow yourself that space to then create something different for you, and possibly for another friendship that could really work and sit well within the space that you're in. It could maybe be that someone's in a similar situation to you, and you can then have that time and create that time to have those deep, meaningful conversations with them. I think that is such a powerful challenge that we all have. And if you really do think about it, I'm sure we've all been through that situation, be it when we were kids, be it when we got married, when we had kids, when now our kids have left home. Remember, we're not all on the same time span and schedule as each other. And friendships often sort of, drip away, and then they come back, depending on what stage that we're at. And we may not all be at the same stage at the same time. So just allow that person the space to go off and do what they need to do, and allow you your space to create a different opportunity, grow a different relationship that could really work for you. So it's for your benefit. I just want to say thank you so much for being here. It really does mean a lot to me. And if you are new to Real Women's Stories and you have enjoyed this episode and you haven't listened to any of the other episodes, there are about 55 episodes to listen to in all of the 5 series that I've currently been releasing. You know, it does take a lot of work for me and dedication to do this, but I do it because I really care about my community. And I honestly do mean that. And I do get some really positive people, some positive feedback from people messaging into me. So thank you to anyone who does message into me. Let's grow this community. This is about real talk, real conversations, real people, real life. I will often muck up sometimes because I'm a real person and I'm the real woman coach, but that's life, right? We're all here to stumble and fall, and we're all here to learn and share our learnings so that when we make the next steps in our lives, we can make the right choices and we can know and have some self-belief in us and use our intuition that we are making the right choices for now, even if they don't work out right. It's your choice that you're making now. I hope you have enjoyed this particular series of Real Women's Stories where I've been featuring the let them theory. I'm going to be embarking on my next series now. We've got loads of fantastic guest interviews coming up. And we've got lots more coaching episodes coming up as well, which are going to feature some learnings that I have been taking away, because I've been enhancing my knowledge within my coaching space, and I've been doing a diploma in the positivity of psychology. I'm going to be bringing into the coaching episodes of my next series some of the tools and practices that I've been learning in the modules, because it's just going to help me to learn this and let it sink in even more. And then I can share those learnings with you, which I'm sure will be highly beneficial. So why not join me for my next series of Real Women's Stories?